Good morning, everyone. Welcome to official YouTube channel of Officers at 24/7. How are you all? So welcome to the channel. And in this particular session, we will be discussing back to basic series of your IFS subject. As you know, Monday to Friday, we all are meeting on only on Officers at 24/7, in which we are discussing back to basic series for IE and IFS subject. So the timing of this session will be 7:30 a.m. It will be available from Monday to Friday for all of you. So now we have already covered 16 classes. So we have covered 16 classes of your IFS back to basic series, and today we are going to discuss that will be your 17th unit. It's what? It's your 17th, so not the unit, but the class. This is the 17th class, in which the unit number 7 we will be discussing. That's the economic reform. If you remember, in the globalization, we have discussed about it. So I have told you that globalization is a part of economic reforms, and this economic reform is known as liberalization, privatization, globalization, that we have already discussed. Now, what they are, why they have been introduced, all of these we will be covering in this particular sessions of your. Okay, so this is a class number 17. If you guys have not watched the earlier 16 classes, then you can go and visit the playlist of Officers at 24/7. You will find the recording of each and every class there. Okay, and this is a unit number 7. You can say economic reform was happened in India in 1991, which changed India totally. And actually, this economic reform have changed a lot of sectors. A lot of reforms have been seen, and each and every sector have been impacted or affected because of the economic reform. Somehow this economic reform have given us a lot of advantages, lot of benefits, but yes, there is a certain disadvantages as well in the economic reform. If you remember, in the globalization, we have discussed the disadvantages of globalization, because of which the protectionism measure or protectionist measures have been introduced by the government of India. So similarly, now when we talk about the economic policy reforms or new economic policy, there are certain things which are not good for the national interest, and for that a certain protectionism measures will be used by the government of India time to time. Okay, so now let's continue the session here. Before continuing the session, I will be your mentor for IFS subject and PPB for English medium sessions for your JAIIB May 2024 paper. Now you can see this is the module A. We are discussing about the economic reforms here. That's your unit number 7. Okay, now let's start. First of all, what actually the economic reform is? Economic reforms are the reforms that have been introduced to make India more capable of growing and developing itself. By having the certain new targets, by having the certain new partners in trade, so that we will be able to survive, as well as we will be able to grow, and we will be able to provide the better livelihood to the people who are living in the country. So now, why this economic reform happened? And first of all, this economic reform is LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization. We know that the last economic policy, or we can say the new economic policy that India have introduced, was in 1991 only. After that, no new economic policy was introduced. Okay. Now, if we're talking about economic reforms, what was the reason of introducing economic reform? So first of all, this is the LPG. Introduced in 1991. What was the need of introducing the economic reform? Why we have introduced the economic reform? So there are certain reasons. So first of all, the reason was fiscal deficit was increasing. Now, what is fiscal deficit? If we are talking about fiscal deficit is the loss of government of India in the budget. So budget is the statement of income and expenditure of government of India for the upcoming financial year. And when in the budget, the expenditure is more than the revenue, is more than the income, in that situation, that is known as deficit. So fiscal deficit was increasing. It means government have taken a lot of borrowings, government have taken a lot of loan, that created a financial burden on the government, and the government was not capable of repaying of that loan. So that's why we have introduced the LPG, one of the reason. The second reason was inflation was rising continuously. Increase in inflation means prices were rising. So at that time in 1991, India reached to a galloping stage. 16% plus inflation was there in the country. If inflation is rising, it means prices are rising. If the prices are rising, it means your cost of living is increasing. To survive, you need to fulfill your basic needs. And those basic needs became costlier because the inflation was continuously rising. And the people were not able to survive in that situation. Let's say, for example, when the inflation was rising, I was not capable of fulfilling my needs, even my needs. So that was impacting the living standard of the people, as well as that will creating, or that impacted the money value of your currency. So whenever the inflation is rising, the money value decreases because the prices are increasing. By paying more money, you will be able to purchase less goods and services. That's why your money values keep decreasing when there is an inflation. So this is second reason of introducing economic reform. The third reason was there was a balance of payment crisis. Now, what is balance of payment? Balance of payment is a systematic statement between India and rest of the world. So we know India do export, import, investment, tourism, grants, a lot of things are there. So between India and rest of the world, a certain type of economic transactions are going on in a financial year. When you maintain the record of those economic transactions, that is known as balance of payment. So balance of payment is a systematic statement of all the economic transactions between India and rest of the world in a financial year. Let's say, for example, economic transaction means the transactions which are related to money. And India and rest of the world having a lot of economic transaction in one financial year. That covers imports of goods and services, exports of goods and services, investment from India to abroad, from abroad to India, remittances from India to abroad, abroad to India, tourism that's coming from abroad to India and going outside from India to abroad, grants, the financial assistance you are getting, etc. So any kind of economic transaction which is happening between India and rest of the world in a one financial year, that will be recorded in a very systematic form. And that document is known as balance of payment. And when there is a balance of payment crisis, it means we have earned less and we have paid more in the balance of payment. Okay, so when the economic transactions were happening between India and the rest of the world, so we have seen that India have paid more money to the foreign countries in comparison to what India earned from the foreign countries. And where there we have seen the balance of payment crisis. One of the reasons of introducing LPG. Next, fourth reason, because the balance of payment crisis were there, we were reached to a situation where the foreign currency reserves were decreasing. And it left only for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, we will not be, at the time, we will not be able to pay the import bills. Hana, at that time, it has said that if you are not able to control the situation, after 2 weeks, India will not be able to pay its imports bill. Import means purchasing of goods and services from abroad. So when you are purchasing goods and services from abroad, it means you have to make payment in the foreign currency, and your foreign currency was left only for 2 weeks. After that, you won't be able to pay your import bills. And this situation was created because of the Gulf War. Now what happened? Gulf War happened, and after the Gulf War, we have seen the crude oil prices were continuously increasing at a very high phase. And India at that time, or still if we talk about India, India is a importer. India do imports a large amount of crude oil in the country. And because of that, the foreign currency reserves were decreasing at that time, and the balance of payment crisis we have faced because a lot of money went outside the country for the purchase of crude oil. So Gulf War was one of the reasons. Then next we have seen public sector undertakings were in worst financial condition. They were in worse financial condition. So the government did not have money at that time, and that's why the public sector undertakings were not working properly. They did not have money to spend in the production of goods and services. They did not have money to provide employment in the country, or even to give salaries to the employees of there. So a lot of things were going on, and the public sector undertakings were not capable of producing and creating jobs and paying salaries to the employees. So their financial condition was very bad. After seeing all these issues, in the end, India went to World Bank and IMF and asked for a loan to help India. And in that situation, World Bank and IMF have put a condition in front of India that yes, we are ready to provide you the loan, but on a condition if you do the economic reform. And that's where the condition of introducing LPG happens seen. So a lot of issues, all these issues we were facing in the country at the time of 1991. So when we went to the World Bank and IMF, because they are the international organization and India is the founder member of both. So we went to the international organization for asking help to them, from them. So they said this, yes, India will get the help from World Bank and IMF, but only on the condition if you do the economic reform. If you change your economic policy, we are happy to help you out. If you are not changing the economic policies, then India will not get the loan. This was said by the World Bank and IMF. And on this condition, India have to introduce the LPG policy. And that's where the liberalization, privatization, globalization or the economic reform happen in the country. Let's say if without any condition, World Bank and IMF was ready to give India the capital, the loan that India required, then there was a very less chances that India was introducing the LPG policy. Okay, so these are the 6 to 7 reasons why India have introduced the economic reform in 1991. And these reform was introduced by Dr. Manmohan Singh. He was the finance minister at the time under the government of Mr. Narasimha Rao. Okay, so these are the reasons. This was the need of introducing the economic reforms. Okay, do remember all the points. They are very important. Now, what economic reforms cover? It covers the liberalization, privatization and globalization. If I'm talking about liberalization, it do what? It remove the rules, regulations or restrictions. So to remove rules, regulations, restrictions in the country, that's the liberalization. So liberalization made the license, permit and quota Raj a thing of a past. So license, permit and quota Raj have been removed by the liberalization. So in the liberalization, we are trying to make things very easy to be adopted. Hana, it means to start a business in India. If anybody wants to start a business in India, they will be easily able to do that. That's what the liberalization is trying to do. So liberalization simply means to remove rules, regulations, restrictions from a certain policies, or we can say certain norms that have been introduced by the government of India in the country. Okay, so that each and every person will be easily able to do the business in the country. Now, privatization means transferring the ownership or the management to private sector. From where? From the government sector. From the government, what we have done, we have transferred the ownership to the private sector. It means the government's share, the government's management, the government's ownership of a particular sector have been given to the private sector, the private industrialists. And that's where we have find out that India became the mixed economy. Because of the privatization, India became mixed economy, because now the government and private sector, they both are working in country. They both are eligible to take the major economic decisions in the country. Okay. Now, globalization means simply to link Indian economy with world economies. With the world economies. So we have linked Indian economy with world economies. It means we have allowed economy to do export and import without any restriction. That made Indian economy an open economy. So liberalization means removing rules, regulations, restrictions. Privatization means transferring ownership to the private company. Then globalization means to start or to remove the hurdles and allow the country to do export and import in the country. And we linked Indian economy with the world economies. Or we have increased the dependency or interaction in cross-border transactions. Okay, so this is the basic understanding of your economic reform that we have discussed. Now we are going to practice certain questions on the same topic. So the first question in front of you is this, that is asking, what were the reason for introducing the economic reform in 1991? Out of these 3 reasons, which was the reason of introducing economic reform? The Gulf War, the negative balance of payment, the increase in fiscal deficit. So what do you think? Out of these 3 reasons, which one of them or which of the following is the right reason of introducing economic reform? A, B, C or D? And it's very obvious the right answer will be D. The Gulf War happened and the balance of payment was in the crisis situation. It means it was negative and the fiscal deficit was continuously increasing. So right answer will be your D option. Okay, next. The process of transferring ownership, management, control of a public sector partially or entirely to the private sector is known as. So you are transferring the ownership, the management, the control from government to private sector. Hana, it can be partially done, it can be fully done. Hana, which of the following term defines this statement? Is it a globalization? Is it a liberalization? Is it a privatization? Is it a none of the above? So it's very obvious it's a privatization when you partially or fully transfer the ownership, the management, the control to the private sector. It's a privatization. So right answer is C. Okay. Next, which is not one of the primary pillars of 1991 economic reform. So out of these, which of the following is not one of the primary pillar? Automation, liberalization, globalization, privatization. So I think it's a very simple question because we know economic reform is known as LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization. So automation is not a part of your economic reform. So right answer will be your A option. Okay, right answer is what? It's a A option. Now, next we have which of the following concept was not a part of the economic reforms under the new economic policy in 1991. Centralization, liberalization, globalization, privatization. So now when I talk about national economic policy or new economic policy that was last introduced in 1991. So we know LPG is a part of your new economic policy. So it's very obvious the right answer is A. Now, about centralization. Centralization is a power, Hana, that have been there in the planning commission. When we are going to study the economic planning in country now, we will study the planning commission and Niti Aayog, Hana, and there we will study what actually the centralized power is. In the short, if I explain you here, centralized power is the power in which the single authority, there is one authority, this authority have all the power to decide what to do, how to do, where to do, etc. Everything is this authority is deciding. And this authority will take the decision and will share with the other authorities, like in the planning commission used to happen. The central government used to make all the plans and it was only, and the plan used to be ordered or suggested or have to be applied by the state and union territory as well. So planning, in the planning commission, central government used to make the plan and states and union territory have to follow them, all the plans. And state and union territory, they did not have any kind of option to give their suggestions or give their feedback in the centralized planning. So centralized planning means one authority have been decided, that authority is deciding what to do, when to do, how to do, and you just have to follow that. You do not have any kind of authority to give your suggestion, to give your feedback or anything else. Okay, so that was the centralized power. And in the Niti Aayog, we have a decentralized power. In the Niti Aayog, the other parties are involved in the decision making. Clear? So right answer is A here. Now, which of the following has occurred in India after the liberalization of economic policy in 1991? So what changes or what happened after the liberalization? The share of agriculture in GDP increased. The share of India's exports in world trade increased. FDI inflow increased. India's foreign exchange reserve increased. So what do you think? Which of the following is correct? Which of the following have occurred in India after its liberalization of economic policy? A, B, C or D? So see, I have told you in the globalization as well that the most benefit we have seen from the globalization, that the foreign capital inflow. It means it is very true the FDI inflow was increased. And if the foreign capital was coming from abroad to India, it means very obvious the foreign exchange reserve was increasing. Third and fourth is correct. The second is saying share of India increased to the export. That is also true. In the world export, India share increase, that is also true. But this is not. Agriculture shares is decreasing after the liberalization and the service sector contribution is increasing. So agriculture contribution is decreasing. So right answer will be B, second, third and fourth. Not the first one, but second, third and fourth is correct in context to the What happened in India after the liberalization? So right answer will be B option. Okay, next. Narasimhan Committee on Financial Sector Reform is related to which sector? Insurance, banking, capital market or money market? Now do remember, Narasimhan Committee is very much important. Narasimhan Committee 1 and Narasimhan Committee 2 is there. They have given the financial sector reform. These reform we will be studying in the module C, unit number 20, Indian financial system. What recommendation have been given by the Narasimhan Committee 1 and what recommendation have been given by the Narasimhan Committee 2. Both are very important. That's a part of your module C syllabus. Hana, we have to cover that. But now here you have to remember that the financial sector reform that the Narasimhan Committee have given, it was related to banking sector. It was related to what? It was related to banking sector. And these reforms, Hana, when we talk about these reforms have what? Like the reduce the CRR, SLR, increase the supervisory review of banking system, increase the competition by creating private sector bank. These were the recommendation. A lot of other recommendation was also there. That was given by the Narasimhan Committee in the banking sector. Okay, so right answer is B. Next question is, what was the primary outcome of liberalization and privatization initiative under the new economic policy in 1991 followed by the Indian government? So the primary outcome we have seen of liberalization and privatization was what? The fiscal policy reforms, the globalization, the monetary policy reform, or none of the above. So I guess answer is very clear. It is globalization, because in the liberalization we have removed the rules, regulation, restriction, and in privatization we allowed the private company to work in India. It have its primary outcome that the globalization was possible to do. Okay, so the right answer will be a B. That is globalization. Now, which of the following arguments are made in favor of privatization of a country's economy? Which of the following arguments are made in what? Are made in favor of privatization. First, it helps to revive public sector unit. It creates a competitive environment for business. It helps to protect the sovereignty of a consumer. So what do you think? Which of the following argument was given in context or in favor of the privatization in India? Like, which of the following statements justify that it is good if we do the privatization in country? And the right answer will be all, because actually the private sector help us to revive the sick public sector units. They create the competitive environment in the country. They protect the sovereignty of countries, consumer. So that's why right answer will be D. All statements were in the favor of privatization. Okay, now what is the full form of LQP system? So LQP system have been removed in the liberalization. Now it became a thing of a past because it was removed by the liberalization. So it stands for what? License, permit and quota raj. It means right answer will be A. License, quota, permit. Okay, so right answer is your A. LQP. Do remember this. This is very important. Now, which of the following was not a part of a structural adjustment program under the new economic policy? So, which of the following is not a structural adjustment program? The fiscal reform, the tax reform, the balance of payment adjustment, the industrial reform. Not a structural adjustment program that have been done under the NEP. So, it's very obvious balance of payment is not one of them. The balance of payment is not the structural adjustment plan in the new economic policy 1991. So right answer will be C. Okay, so now let me know how many answers you guys have given correct here. Let me know that. Apart from that, if you guys are watching recorded session, do let me know in the comment section how many answers you have given correct. Also, if you have any doubt regarding economic reform or anything what we are discussing in the session, you can ask in the comment section. Okay, so let's start here. Now, apart from that, if you want a dedicated batch in which you will be able to cover the topic with the conceptual understanding, so you can see that the PPB comprehensive, the comprehensive batch in which all the 4 subjects are there, and the PPB have been started from 20th of November. In the same batch, I will be starting IE IFS from 8th of December as well. Okay, and in all these batches, you will get the conceptual live classes plus 24/7 recording will be available for all of you. Topic-wise test series will be available, full-length mock test will be available, and you will get everything ebook also. So these are the 5 benefit you will get in each Sankalp batch of yours. Similarly, all these 5 benefits will be there in the Mahapack, plus it will have all the future batches as well. So if you purchase the JAIIB Mahapack 2.0, if the revision batch, power pack batch, or whatever batch in the future is coming, it will be added in your Mahapack. And if you are right now enrolled in the Sankalp batch, in future you have to pay differently. You have to pay for the other batches to enroll there. Okay, and how to enroll? The process of enrollment is same. Just go to the 24/7 application, then go to the exam category JAIIB CIB. Go to the JAIIB May 2024, click on view all option, and you will find all the batches here. Individual subject batch, comprehensive batch, Mahapack, everything is there. How to enroll? Just click on the product. Do check the offerings here. You can decide the validity as per your convenience. Then click on the buy now option. If you want a maximum discount of 81%, you can use the code Y496. Apply this code and you can see 80% discount is there. But 1% additional discount will be available if you use the coins available in application. So this is the code that will give you 81% discount, and in the Mahapack right now double validity is also there. So double validity, 81% discount is there if you use the code Y496, and this is how you can enroll here. Okay. Now, IFS batches is starting from when? It is starting from 8th of December. Clear? And the same process is there if you want to enroll in the Sankalp batch. In the Sankalp batch, you will get 9 months validity. Here you are getting 1 year validity, and the price difference will be around 1500 or something. Okay, so this is how you can enroll in the Mahapack or the Sankalp batch. Clear? Apart from that, if you have any kind of doubt, do let me know. So first, download the 24/7 application, and then do subscribe the channel Officers at 24/7, so that all the upcoming sessions notification will be given to you. Okay. Apart from that, for IFS subject, regular classes back to basic series, we are having the sessions in the morning, Monday to Friday at 7:30 AM. And the same back to basic series have been started for principles and practice of banking. The sessions for principles and practice of banking is going on at 7 AM only on Offices at 24/7. So do not forget to join both the session at 7 and 7:30 AM for your PPB and IFS respectively. Okay. So this is all for today. Thank you all for joining the session and take care. Have a good day, everyone.